Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be mapping out a startling, highly complex set of claims presented in Galina Tsareva's documentary on global wildfires. Now, the source material here doesn't just question how fires in places like California start, it proposes this intricate global conspiracy involving weather warfare. We definitely aren't here to endorse these views, but rather to objectively break down exactly what this source is arguing and the narrative it's building.
Here is how we're going to break this down today. 1. Claims of unnatural wildfires. 2. Weapons of weather modification. 3. The alleged masterminds. 4. The ultimate global motive. And finally, number 5, the manufactured aftermath. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Section 1, Claims of Unnatural Wildfires.
So the whole foundation of this theory starts with a pretty stark contrast. The documentary points out that your typical forest fire usually hits temperatures around, 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. But, and here's the kicker, they're showing footage of aluminum car rims melting at these fire scenes. Aluminum needs temperatures of nearly 2000 degrees to melt into a puddle like that. The argument here is that normal, natural fires literally cannot burn that hot, especially not while leaving delicate pine needles just feet away completely untouched.
The speakers focus heavily on very specific footage, particularly out of Paradise, California. We're talking about whole neighborhoods reduced to absolute ash, right alongside perfectly pristine forests. They describe these fires as behaving almost like a surgically targeted weapon, jumping from one house to another, completely destroying structures, but somehow inexplicably sparing trees that are just mere feet away. For the proponents of this theory, this hyper-selective destruction is their smoking gun. They argue there's absolutely no way this is just random nature taking its course.
Which brings us to Section 2, Weapons of Weather Modification.
Okay, so if it's not nature, what is it? Well, the documentary claims there's an entire interconnected arsenal at play here. Researchers in the video state that heavy metal aerosols, what you might know as chemtrails, are being heavily sprayed in these regions to basically turn the air explosive and trap smoke. Then they claim technologies like HAARP, which is actually a real government ionospheric research program, are being weaponized to totally destabilize regions. They even claim it causes earthquakes. And it gets wilder. They allege everyday smart meters installed in homes are used to trigger local fires, while orbital lasers or directed energy weapons act as the main spark from above.
To back all this up, the video builds a chronological timeline of military tech, attempting to connect past defense testing straight to the catastrophic blazes we're seeing today. They point out that back in 2003, then Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld actually acknowledged the development of directed microwave weapons. Fast forward to 2007, and they highlight an airborne laser system that successfully demonstrated its targeting capabilities. The source basically draws a straight line from those historical military tests right to the 2017 Northern California fires, suggesting that this military tech was simply turned inward on domestic targets.
All right, moving on to Section 3, the alleged masterminds.
Now this is where the theory weaves a massive web, connecting local energy companies all the way up to global organizations. The documentary claims the utility giant PG&E, which they allege is controlled by the Rothschilds, is actually the one managing these energy weapons. And then they connect this to the United Nations, claiming these fires are executions of Agenda 21. Now, Agenda 21 is a real, non-binding UN sustainability plan, but this theory frames it as a massive, sinister depopulation plot. Finally, they point the finger at FEMA and local governments, labeling them as the on-the-ground enforcers who swoop in to secure land grabs once the smoke clears.
A huge pillar of this theory relies on supposedly intercepted emails from energy executives. According to the documentary, these emails explicitly discuss orbital solar generators. Now, this is satellite technology originally meant to beam solar energy down to Earth as direct current. But the speakers claim they have documents proving these satellites were secretly repurposed to beam destructive microwave frequencies right at specific civilian targets. They actually cite the town of Sebastopol, California, as one of the towns explicitly named in these alleged intercepts.
This brings us to the big why in Section 4, the ultimate global motive.
So according to the video, the entire concept of climate change, it's just a cover story. The documentary argues that global warming is essentially a fake reality, completely constructed by world leaders, just to justify the devastating aftermath of this weather warfare. The idea is that by blaming carbon emissions and Mother Nature, the architects of this conspiracy can just continue their attacks unchecked. They basically use climate action plans as a giant smokescreen to gain unprecedented control over global populations. The speakers are adamant that this isn't random destruction.
They claim it's a highly organized, cyclical, four-step plan. Step 1, ignite targeted fires using those energy weapons we talked about. Step 2, evict the traumatized survivors. Step 3 is actually kind of fascinating. The documentary claims governments use sneaky archaeological loopholes, like suddenly discovering ancient Native American artifacts in the rubble, using that to block citizens from rebuilding, and then declaring the land a protected wild zone. And finally, Step 4, herding all these newly minted climate refugees into tightly controlled, heavily surveilled urban centers that they call smart cities.
And finally, Section 5, the manufactured aftermath.
The video really tries to drive this home by featuring gripping testimonials from actual survivors, using these emotional, terrifying anecdotes to reinforce the idea of a malicious, coordinated attack. Residents recount how massive blazes just descended on their towns in a matter of hours, but no official warnings were ever given. They describe scenes of just sheer terror at 4 a.m., claiming police cars were sitting right there but refusing to sound their sirens or even knock on doors. For the filmmakers, this alleged abandonment by authorities is presented as absolute proof that the casualties were entirely intentional. And the documentary claims the weaponization doesn't stop when the fire goes out. They allege the recovery effort itself is weaponized. They state that local cleanup crews are deliberately bypassed. Instead, outside contractors, who supposedly only took a 40-hour certification course, are brought in and given special ID cards. Meanwhile, they claim local residents are forcefully evicted from temporary trailer camps. The source argues this whole thing is a highly controlled operation designed to permanently displace locals so they can never reclaim their generational property. As we wrap up this explainer on the documentary's claims, we are left looking at a really fascinating dynamic. Whether you view this as an exposure of hidden truths or just a sweeping conspiracy theory, it definitely highlights something profound about human psychology. We really have to ask ourselves, how do profound loss, mass confusion during government recovery efforts, and just sheer raw fear become the ultimate catalyst for meticulously structured alternate realities like the one we've just unpacked? You know, when reality feels completely out of control, finding a hidden architect, even a terrifying one, might just be how we try to make sense of the ashes. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.